Hi everybody, it's Nikki again, and I'm here to do the second part of my video about the last Medtronic phone call I had a couple days ago. I had made the phone call basically to gather some information about what I could do in auto this time around that would maybe set it up for a positive experience, to be a positive experience. I did do a video about a lot of information that she gave me regarding auto mode, and then we got on to calibrating, and I did explain to her that, I have a pretty good size Facebook group and that there's just endless issues with calibrating, which I don't typically have, but I'm back in manual mode. And now that I'm in auto mode, I wanted to figure out what to expect and what I could do and everything else. And so we went over some information on calibrating. So most general stuff. Again, they haven't changed on this too much. They do recommend calibrating 3 to 4 times a day when you're most stable. No arrows. They say good times to do it is at fasting, or if that's not a good time for you, maybe 2 hours after breakfast. Just before lunch or dinner, and before bed. Okay, so we talked about the 35% rule. And she said, yes, that absolutely applies in auto mode, that the BG has to be within 35% of the SG. And I asked her, why don't they tell people that? Because that seems to be something that people come to the group and they're not aware of the rule. And it's a strict rule. So I asked her, I said, how come Medtronic doesn't really tell people that? And she said, they don't really tell people that because they don't think people are going to calculate it. She said, most people don't want to have to calculate it. And so they tell people to wait because the same thing often works. But I do use the 35% rule. In fact, I won't put in a number without calculating it. And that is because especially in auto mode, you have 2 strikes. And if you give it 2 numbers that it doesn't like, it's going to tell you to change your sensor. So I think it's worth calculating that in auto. In manual, the 35% rule does not apply. You can't give it something that's, drastically different than your SG. It can deny a number 2, but it's nothing like it, what it does in auto. Okay, so then she says about the iSig. She says that Medtronic recommends calibrating at an iSig of at least 18. And then she goes on to say that most iSigs are in the 20s to 40s range. This one I think is mind-blowing. And I actually have logs and logs of iSigs and my corresponding BG and SG, and everything else, and those calibration factors. So I do plan on at some point sitting down and kind of taking a look at that, because I know that I can go days on end where my iSig isn't above an 18. So I'm not supposed to ever be able to calibrate then. I think that there's something wrong with that rule, but I think it's an interesting idea. And I think it's an interesting idea. I think it takes the emphasis off of the 35% and the calibration factor, however, and I do think that's a little bit of a mistake, because that iSig can also drop just for a very low blood sugar. So it shouldn't be more important than the calibration factor in my mind. But with that being said, I have no idea what I'm doing at all with auto or with anything. I'm having a tough day. So, okay, anyway. Then she goes on to talk about the calibration factor, and I was trying to get her to say, about the 2 to 8 or the 3 to 8. And what she said is that, yes, they used to say 2 to 16. That used to be Medtronic's range. She said they now say 3 to 8.33, which I have never heard before, so I don't have any idea. And that is within auto mode, that when you go to calibrate, your calculated calibration factor should fall within that range. And if you calibrate outside of that range, it can create some problems. And in fact, what I think it creates is that BG required notification. I think it gives you that. So that's the other thing. That's the other one. And even in manual mode, there is a calibration factor kind of general guideline, but it's not 8. It's closer to 10 and 11. But in auto mode, I won't put in a number unless I know it's within the range, because it can end up telling me to change my sensor. We talked about the first day sensor, and again, I thought that was mind-blowing, because they still say that it should be a 2-hour warm-up. Your initial calibration, and then there should be one 6-hour window and one 12-hour window. I have a sensor change coming up tomorrow. I will stay in auto mode in order to do it. But I don't get 2, 6, 12. I get 2, 3, 6, 6, 12, and I get 2, 6, 6, 12, and I get those every single time. So I don't understand that one either. However, she did mention that in auto mode, she says that when you have started up a new sensor, you'll go through your warm up, you'll do your initial calibration, and that within 30 minutes, auto mode should prompt you for a BG input, for some BG input, a BG required. She said you want to give it the BG and you do not want to calibrate again because that will set off, you know, the incessant demand for, you know, more stuff. Your value, your BG value is valid for up to 12 minutes. She says once you're outside of 12 minutes, it can really create problems, so you want to test again. And I will say about that I try to keep it within 2 or 3 minutes because all of these numbers are changing so fast that if your calibration factor changes from a 7.8 to what I thought was just above an 8, you know, say an 8.2, that could be enough to cause a problem. So you really want, so I don't take a number until I'm ready to take all my numbers. And that's just kind of my own rule there. That's it. That's calibrating. I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.